Welcome in to the Cam and Strick podcast, episode number 16. It's the one and only. This guy is an absolute legend. You know, Cam, sometimes we call them legends. Yeah. This guy falls into that category.
Oh, he is a legend, and I looked up to him as a kid. And
you look up to everybody.
Okay, fine. I'm still going to say it because I did. And the Rock'em Sock'em tapes and all that stuff, and finally I was able to be on a couple of those throughout my career. And he was always great to me. And always, maybe he was tough on Europeans and things like that. And I can understand where some people look at him in a different way, and I understand that. But let me tell you something real quick. I'm a Eureka boy from middle of Missouri, and I went to Canada, and I drank their beer, I beat up their heavyweights, and I hung out with their women, and he treated me like gold.
What is this?
I'm just letting you know.
I mean, is this like a campaign
I'm just letting you know. That's why.
I'm Cam Chanson, and I will drink your beer, I will be with your women, and I will beat up
not
your
anymore
tough
because I'm
guys.
happily married, but it is what it is. When I was 17 years old, they accepted me. The Canadians accepted me up there, and they treated me great.
Okay, so
there
what does that
you
have
go.
to do with Don Cherry?
He treated me great, and I'm an American. I know I'm a European with a visor on, but I had to wear a visor in juniors, and he still liked me.
He did. And listen, when you're a kid growing up here, as a young kid, not everybody in the States is familiar with who Don Cherry is. But, you go to Blockbuster Video when you were a kid, and you get those videos, the Rock'em Sock'em videos.
Man.
And we got those all the time when I was a kid. And he is an absolute legend. People, look at him for his suits and some of the stuff that he wears, man. But, you watch him over the years. Sometimes you may disagree with him. Sometimes, or a lot of times, you do agree with him. And that's what made Don Cherry great. And you know what else made him great is the fact that he was just different. Yeah. And I love the fact that, he went about things his own way. He was himself. And that's what made him so successful.
And I'll tell you this, we being in the United States, especially in Missouri, we didn't get to understand the Hockey Night in Canada and how big that is.
Religion.
It's religion up there. It's religious. And to the families all get together. And when I lived in Canada, when I lived in Windsor and played for Guelph and all that stuff, I sat there with my billet family, and I saw how important Hockey Night in Canada was for people that actually lived in Canada and went through it for generations and generations. And it was eye-opening how much they loved hockey up there and how much they loved that man.
If you go into a press box around the league, and when Hockey Night in Canada comes on, and it was Coach's Corner, all the media, they're always gathered around to hear what Don Cherry and Ron Maclean had to say. And I'm curious, inside the dressing room, would players talk about it? Did they want to be on Hockey Night in Canada? If they were featured on there, would guys chirp them? Would they be excited for was it a big deal to the players?
It was a huge deal for the players. And you got that towel too, that you got Hockey Night in Canada towel. I still have that. My parents have all that kind of stuff. And it was like, oh, they want me? I must have done something right.
Right.
So he's a big dog up there. And again, a lot of people are a little different now in the way they think, and he's just himself. He's never changed, and it is what it is. And I understand both sides, but to me, on a personal level, I like that man a lot.
Do you wish you would have played in a Canadian city?
That's a great question. I got to play for my hometown, dude, and I got to play for Lou Lamoriello. I thought about that, Andy. It's a good question, actually. Good job for you. I played in my hometown to set me up for after hockey. Look what we're doing now, making money, doing our thing, talking to each other about
bar. We're at Schneidhorst.
Whatever we want to do.
We got to give Jimmy Schneidhorst
absolutely
a shout out because we just wanted a quiet place to come here and do this. And of course, Schneidhorst they're doing some renovations, they're shutting down. But our boy Jimmy said, "Hey man, let's come here and hang out."
Yeah, and we did, and it's nice. And I will say, I'm glad the two teams I played for, of course, my hometown, and playing for Lou Lamoriello, who set me straight and kind of, helped me propel into be a man. Believe it or not, I am a man. Kind of.
When a guy like no, you are, man.
Who you kidding?
Got hands like a hamburger helper.
I don't have hands like a woman. I'll tell you that.
Monster hands.
Gross.
But when you have a legend like Don Cherry, the saddest thing is that it kind of ended the way that it ended.
Yeah.
But listen, I've interviewed him on radio, and the only radio interview he did in the United States, by the way, he did one television interview after he was fired. He did one radio interview after he was fired, at least within the first week before the next episode of Hockey Night in Canada. Yeah. And he came on my show here in St.
Tucker
Louis
Carlson
on 590 The Fan. And, you just wonder deep down if he's hurt by how it all went down.
Of course he is. Of Of course he is.
And for that reason, considering how old he is, he's in his 80s. I do feel bad for him.
I do too a little bit, and I do and I don't. The guy's lived a magnificent life, and he can do whatever the hell he wants, and he's got a ton of money. And but when you're in the spotlight that long, and you love that attention, I completely understand that. I love walking in a room and being center of attention. Don't get me wrong. And whenever you do that for that long, and all of a sudden you're not, it takes a toll on you. Just like when you're playing in the NHL for 20 years, and all of a sudden you don't. Or whatever the case is, it does take a toll on you. And he's been doing it a lot longer than anybody else has.
Yeah, and he was so good at it, and obviously he had a lot of opinions, and people loved watching and listening to Don Cherry. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation for sure. We get into a lot of different topics with the one and only Grapes. Brought to you by Cope 24. Enjoy this one from the one and only, the legend, Don Cherry. And you never know who we're going to have on the show. As always, we like, let's say, Cam. How do we describe our next guest? We talk about pioneers in the game, people who move the needle, and we're not talking about you. We are talking about.
How do you think I got so jacked up before games? Seriously, in the '90s, how do you think I got jacked up? I watched those Rock'em Sock'em tapes. I watched them every damn day. Then I'd go out there and get kicked out in the first period. Thank you, Grapes, for that. Thank you for getting me too riled up. I love it.
You must love this team, Cam. The way you played, you must love this team.
Oh, we were right there watching the whole damn thing, Grapes. And I'll tell you this: halfway through, getting calls from Patty Maroon, and everybody's in the slump, and things were going down. I mean, there was probably 1 or 2 more days of bad hockey, and that whole team would have been dismantled. And it didn't happen. And look now. And on a selfish note for Andy and I, Grapes, this bumped up our career so much just with all the attention and things like that. So we're taking advantage of everything. And again, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, and those the All-Star out there had McGinnis going over. Imagine, I can't believe it that McGinnis went over 100 miles an hour with a wooden stick. I was a little worried when I thought, I don't, around 80 or something. Over 100 with a wooden stick. Boy, that guy could really hammer a puck.
I think that was manufactured there, Don. You never know. We can go ahead and believe that he can still shoot the puck 100 miles an hour, but I have a feeling.
I believe. I remember McGinnis when he got hurt that time. I don't know if you guys remembered. He was going back to, it was an icing, and a guy tripped him just as he went, and he was out about 8 months. He's a great guy, and I'm so happy to see the guy put a. I wondered about 100, but I'll tell you one thing: when he wound up, boy, everybody get out of the way. He's like Weber now.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Or that kid from the American League, Don. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw. The All-Star game to me. The guys don't try. The women tried. The 3-on-3, they tried, and I think the only way, and I don't know if they do it. You want to get them to try because money means nothing to these guys. Guys making $10 million. But the only way I see that they do it is they play the Europeans against the North Americans, and I think that would work because it's not working now. The guys, I never thought I'd see a 3-on-3. I didn't like a 3-on-3, but they proved it last night. They were brutal.
Yeah, hey, we realize the game's a lot better when it's in your town because you get to experience all the parties and all the fun that comes with it. But what do you think of guys who don't come, Don? The Ovechkins of the world and some of these guys who say no.
Well, Ovechkin, he doesn't come. I guess he's proven it, but I guess they like the day. But they really don't do anything. I guess they don't. I guess I know they have a pretty good time in the party and that, but no, I think the guy should come at least and sign. I like Matthews did, eh?
Yeah.
Matthews came and signed autographs and things that stood around and stuff like that. He missed the game. They won again. Washington won again last night, but I think the guy should come. They really do. I remember when I was in the American Hockey League, I was in Rochester, and I was watching the All-Star game, and I saw Bobby Orr. Of course, there's nobody like Bobby Orr. He went down a block of Bobby Hull's shot, and he caught it, where, and he crawled off the ice. I figured that's him. By God, he was back. Next shift, he was back. It used to mean a lot more than it does now. But they had a good time in St. Louis. Shooting on high and all that stuff. They had a good time.
No, it was. What's keeping you busy, Don? Fill us in. What's going on with you?
Well, I'm doing the podcast, and we're doing pretty good. and my son does it, and we have a lot of fun. And my grandson Dell, he's like, he makes it sound good and everything. But no, we have a lot of fun, and that's what I do now. And it's not much different, I guess, than I did before. But I have a lot of fun, and I loved the playoffs last year. I mean, that was the best playoffs. I didn't know who to cheer for. I remember Boston had the most fights, I think. St. Louis, I mean, that was the toughest team, I think, in a long time. I loved it when they played when they played the San Jose.
Oh, yeah.
They put out Hurdle, Pavelski, and Carlson.
Don, I was doing the post game with Bobby Pleger, and we were going into the third period, and all of a sudden the four of their superstars were off the ice, and we're like, and the Blues were up by like 4 at the time, and Bobby and I looked at each other and we're like, are they just sitting out? And they all got hurt. They all got hurt because they got hit 15 times apiece because the Blues were all over the place, and they didn't call any penalties on that, Donnie. And that's what I love.
After that, they called quite a few. Ruby knows what he's doing. You even have the Europeans getting suspended for a headshot. I mean, that's pretty good. You have the Europeans getting it suspended, but Ruby did a great job. Couldn't got a better guy. He's been there. He's done that. And you're not going to fool this guy. And they're first place again. But you know what? The big thing they've got going for them is their two goaltenders. They got two great goaltenders. I mean, Allen, I think he's from Fredericton, New Brunswick, and Binghamton. I know O'Reilly was the MVP last year, but to me, I thought that Binghamton was the guy. I mean, that last game, I thought Boston was going to win that. I mean, they looked so good, and Rass let in, I think, he had 2 goals and 4 shots. They were doomed. I was St. Louis, boy. They proved to me, and Cam, you say the same thing, that it's got to be tough to go into the playoffs. It's the toughest thing to win, and those guys were tough and good goaltending. Toughness and good goaltending. Good coach can't win. Can't lose.
They say it's a copycat league, but Don, do the young players, the current players in the game, I mean, you got to have the right type of player, the right type of people, the right type of coach, the right type of motivator. Yep. I mean, to get guys to play at that level and to play that way of hockey, right? I mean, it's easier said than done.
Tough way to play hockey. And there's a lot of teams. I'm not going to start knocking teams, but the tough way to play hockey. Regular season, I hate to say it, really means nothing. Look at Tampa last year. They were running away with the league, and they get beat out 4 straight. It's altogether different hockey in the playoffs, and I hope the referees don't change. They don't call it chintzy penalties and stuff like that, like they do in the regular season. But boy, St. Louis proved. I kept saying all along that you got to be tough to be in the playoffs, and boy, did they ever prove it last year. I mean, when that Krug run it, I think he hit that Thomas kid.
He did.
Yeah, that. I think that changed. And St. Louis said, "Oh, you want to play that way?
Let's
all
go."
Right.
Yep,
yeah,
we can do that. And Don, I want to get back, kind of go back in time here a little bit. After your long career, played a lot of games, like 700 in American League. Like just grinding it, and playing the way that you played. It was a tough toll. But after hockey, you went through a lot of different things. I mean, you sold cars, you painted for a bit here.
I tried to sell cars.
You tried to sell, which is not easy to do.
I established myself as the world's worst car salesman. I was Cadillacs too. I drove one. I was just terrible, but I did the best I could.
Well, you needed to make money. You needed to find your second wave of your life, and all of a sudden you got a chance with Rochester and became the coach of the year. But explain to me, after all that stuff, you get a job with Boston. How did you deal with the superstars on that team? How did you connect? Just like Berube did, you had success there. How did you walk in that locker room and say, here's my vision, jump on board?
I don't know how I did it. I don't think anybody coached like I do. I think Berube's the closest because he knocked around, and I just walked in. I did have the superstars. I had Bobby, and I had Phil Esposito, and I had guys like that, but they all left, Dave. And I had to get back to the I wish I had Bobby. Boy, if we had had Bobby, I don't care if Montreal is the greatest team that ever got in the NHL. I don't care where they are. If we had Bobby Orr, we would have him and Park on defense. Oh. But I don't know. I just seem to relate to them, and and the guys that we got after were all blue-collar guys. In fact, one of the reporters called us the lunch pail gang. And we worked hard, and everybody worked hard. And we had two good goalies. We had Jerry Cheevers and Gilly Gilbert, just like Berube's got two good goalies. And, Bington, he was fantastic in the playoffs. So, he really was. I saw him on the elevator. We were in Boston, and it was day of the game, and he didn't look that good in the sixth game. And we rode down, and he said, "Well, we're winning. There's no doubt about it." And holy smokes, this guy's got confidence. And I related to the guys. I had a good time with them. I was there. I was there 5 years, and we had four first place finishes, and had over 100 points, over 300 goals. But we had a tough team too. Really. I think we had a tougher team than St. Louis team. We had that small arena, and we had big guys. And like I say, in the playoffs, you got to have those guys, and St. Louis has them.
I love how Binnington said, "Hey, we're going to win it." You got to love the confidence there. Do you mind the cockiness? Would you rather see more of it?
Oh, I love a guy like that, and he's from Richmond Hill. I watched him play in Vaughan, I think Dixie Beehive, but I watched him play for Vaughan Kings here, and then at Owen Sound I watched him play too, and he was good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he wasn't good, but nothing like he was in the playoffs, and he's had a great year this year. Yeah. Funny thing is, I was looking it up. Allen has a better record, and not much better, but he has just as good record as Bington. And boy, when you have two guys like that to say who you're going to play tonight, that makes you feel pretty good.
Yeah, for
Easy
sure.
Decision.
How much are you missing right now, Bob or Don? Not getting into the breakdown, the analysis, the reaction. When you're watching games, is it hard on Saturday nights now to not be on television commenting on it?
Yeah, what I did was you know what I did for the Poppies, and I told you guys when you come to coffee, I'm sure you come if you're here in Toronto or you're here in Canada on November 11th, you'll always wear a poppy, and I have to say it, and that's the way they had to do what they had to do, and I had to do what I had to do. I like this podcast, that I'm having a good time, and what it is I think some of you guys I think you might remember this. We had a show, The Grapevine.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, and we used to take like Rocket Richard, and we have little bits what he said, and my son does that. He has the rights to all that stuff and everything. So I have a good time. I do miss it. There's no doubt about it. But hey, what are you going to do with that? 38 years, that's a lot. I hope you guys last 38 years.
Are you kidding me? Oh, my God. You should put your feet up and chill and enjoy yourself. I do want to get into this, though, real quick. And I even go on YouTube, Don, I'm not going to lie to you, and I go back and listen.
He watches his own fights.
I watch my own fights sometimes.
He didn't watch anybody else's. He watches his own.
You put me on hockey, Rock'em Sock'em, so you must have liked it a little bit. Maybe you liked Asham, but you definitely put me on there, and I absolutely love that. But I do got a question for you. Going back, and again, I watched your greatest hits on you. It's just the funniest thing in the world. But did any guys ever get pissed at you? Any players ever get pissed at you and say, you know what, Don, I need to have a sit down? I know you had a couple altercations with a couple guys, but anybody and if they did do that, what was your reaction? Sit down and let's talk about this. How'd you react to all that stuff?
I had some bad. Matt Cook. If you guys, somebody took a video of it, and that was bad after he hit Savard. Remember he hit Savard?
Oh yes.
That was he never was the same after that, and then he hit. Who did he hit? Anyhow, him and I had it out pretty good. And I think the funniest one was Donald Brashear. I really liked Marty McSorley. Remember Marty got suspended?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember that he hit him with a stick?
Oh, yeah.
And so I called, I don't know what I said. I didn't like, I liked Brashear, but I didn't like the way he wouldn't go back and fight Marty. And so Marty used the stick. He got suspended, and he was really getting ripped in the paper here for using the stick and all that stuff. So I give it to Brashear pretty good. He wouldn't go back. And by God, the next game in Vancouver, here he was standing in the studio. I couldn't believe it. He's a big guy.
Oh yeah.
He called me a dummy, and I said, I said, yeah, I called you a dummy. He said, you're a dummy. So is that right, eh? So I started to come around. And all of a sudden it hit him. He says, "What am I doing?" And at the studio, I'm picking a fight with one of their guys. So he went out. So I had a lot of guys. I like the guys that some guys I didn't like, and I got a lot of trouble for Europeans and stuff like that. But I on the verge all the time of getting canned, and this time I did.
So what about from like agents, and you mentioned Europeans? I mean, any Europeans ever confront you? And let me ask you this, Don. Did you not like people assume that you just don't like European players and you have it out for European players? Explain yourself there. Is that the case?
Well, one of my favorite players was Pavel Bure, and you guys would remember, but he kicked the legs out of the front of Cam Neely, which I really liked and really hurt Cam. And I call him a little weasel, and they had towels of weasel power and stuff like that. And I liked him. I really did. He was the closest, him and Coffey, the closest thing I ever saw to Bobby Orr. Played reckless like Bobby. You know how they go through the teams and everything. So, I had a lot of guys. I like Steen. Steen's one of your on your team is one of your highest pluses. So. No, I like Steve. He doesn't get that many goals they used to, but he sure takes care of his own end. I'll tell you that, and kills penalties. No, I just didn't like the idea of them coming over and taking Canadian jobs. And I noticed you guys had 18 Canadians on the club too, by the way.
Oh, yes, we did.
In the final, you love that.
Don,
I did that, and it was a tough game last night. Demko, he won the game last night. You guys played them. That Miller, I got to admit, that Miller for Vancouver is pretty cool, though. He doesn't get excited after a goal, but yeah, Demko won that game.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did. He played well. So, I mean, the Europeans, so some of them would get mad. What about agents? And you had a pretty good relationship with Gary Bettman, though. Did he always support what you were doing and saying on hockey night?
Well, I don't think he supported it. I don't think some of the things he was too happy about, but he was always my friend, and I had no problem with him, and I know everybody boos him and everything, but let me tell you one thing: we wouldn't have half the Canadian teams if it wasn't for him. He was the guy that kept Winnipeg around, let Winnipeg back in, and a few other clubs. So, like I don't have to say anything good about anybody else because I'm not with it anymore. But I know Bettman kept the Canadian teams going in there. But at one time, it looked like half of them were leaving. And if it hadn't been for him, I'm always a players guy. And I think when he took over, the average pay, I think the pay salary was around $700,000, and I think it's about $2 million right now.
Oh, so yeah.
He must be doing something right.
Oh, great! So think about the people in St. Louis like Gary Bettman, and I even tweeted this out like a couple months ago. How do you not like Gary Bettman if you're from St. Louis? He gave us a Winter Classic. We have an All-Star game. I mean, like, he's helping us out. He's giving the A-OK for the city to build up the hockey community. We like him in St. Louis.
Well, you're one of the few because I've done more finals than anybody in the history, and he gets booed, and when he does the All-Star, when he does the drafts and that, they boo him all over. But yeah. I'm glad they like him in St. Louis because he was a great guy when I was there. He used to let me away with a few things.
Hey, Grapes, people love you because you were opinionated and you always had a strong opinion. The people who didn't like you probably watch you more than the people who did like you. I mean, that's just the way it works sometimes. But did you ever say to yourself, man, I gotta change my ways, or were you always confident in how you came across on national television?
You know, one of the greatest announcers I think of all time was Dan Kelly, and he was with St. Louis a long time. Oh, yeah. And I remember he came in the Hockey Night in Canada studio. We had a little room there, and he says, "You have to change, Graves. You got." I knew they were trying to get me to change, and he says, "You have to change. Look at us." And Dan gave me a big talking to. We used to go out after and have a few pints, and you know, I never changed, and I kept it up, and I was the only guy that ever got booed in the House of Parliament. I think it was I was the only guy, and. What happened was I said Frenchmen, the only guys that wear visors at the time were Frenchmen and Europeans. Holy smokes. The block. Yeah, that was the block. A standing boo I got out there. I got introduced anyhow, so I was quite proud of that.
But how often did the television networks try to get you to change? And did the NHL ask you to change?
Well, the NHL never said anything. They just let me go, but they were very upset. Hockey Night in Canada, a few things I said. I remember the Persian War. I was really for Americans and for Trump and that there. And but I remember back in the Persian War, we didn't congratulate them or didn't help them or something, and I criticized the government and Ron went, that we shouldn't have gone and stuff like that. That was close. And then they had an All-Star game. I said something on the All-Star game about we should be with the United States more, and stuff like that. Anyhow,
you love the military, Don. You love the military.
They let me go 38 years, so they must have thought I was doing something right.
Exactly. No doubt about that. And speaking of Ron Maclean too, and he was just had a podcast. He was talking about you, talking highly about you, and he was. But I do. You guys went back and forth, and actually Andy and I, with this podcast, and we do.
Yeah, you guys have a good time.
We have a great time together, and we make fun of each other, and sometimes we get pissed at each other, and that's fine and it's healthy. But did any time where you guys look at each other and you go on those tangents where you're bashing him so bad, and it's funny. Did he ever sit back after you're on a break and he say, "Hey, don't ever say that to me again," or did you say that to him? And did you guys ever kind of go at it whenever you guys were beaking each other pretty hardcore?
I remember one time he was. I said a lot of times, but one time he said, "I have a theory," and I said, "I'm sick of your theories." He was very upset at that one, and that sort of. There was a lot of times he was upset, but we got along and
it worked.
It worked. Yeah, I don't know what we were doing, and it was all live. It wasn't taped, and anything that went on, and it was a few things I did that was. I think the one thing I was really the only thing I really regret was Randy Gregg. And remember Randy Gregg played for Edmonton?
Yeah.
Remember he was a big defenseman? He was a doctor, too. And for some reason, he didn't like me, and I didn't like him. I don't know why, now that I think of it. And he was a doctor, and with this game in Chicago, he had a breakaway, and he flubbed up the breakaway. And I said, "Can you imagine a guy, he's a doctor working on your heart with those hands?" And my mother get me upset. She was really upset at that. She said, "I don't mind you talking about hockey and everything when you get personal." And I think that's the only thing I ever regretted saying on television. I shouldn't have got personal, which I never did, but I did that time like a jerk.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, Don, because you said you don't regret anything else, and obviously you made comments that led to you being fired. That's why we don't see you on television anymore. So do you regret the comments? Number one, I'll ask you that, and just because of where it's led you, it took you off of television, and do you feel like you could have done something behind the scenes to keep your job? Did you try to keep your job? Tell us how that went down.
Well, they had to do what I did. What I said was that all you people that come to the country should wear a poppy to be thinking about all the. All the guys that died, and I just saw the movie 1917, and I was thinking of one of my relatives, Sergeant Thomas McKenzie, military mill and bar, and I happened to say that, and they had to do what they had to do, and I had to do what I had to do, and so no, I don't have any animosity toward them, or whatever you say. I don't feel bad towards them. That's the way it is. That they had to do their thing, and I had to do mine. So I'm all right. 38 years. That's a good enough run.
And Ron Maclean, he was on a podcast the other day. He said if you wanted to, you could have kept your job. You think that's true?
If I had wanted to, I could have kept my job.
Yeah.
I suppose I could have. Yeah. If I had a knuckle under, but I think people, wanted to see me the way I was, and I thought, but no, I couldn't have. It's too bad, and a lot of people were upset about it. But I had a good run at it. I wasn't long enough. I have a good time now, and at the podcast, I have a good time. I never swear or anything like that in the podcast, so anybody can listen, and I have a good time. It's not the same, but I used to really like to look. I used to look forward to. They're doing a hockey day in Canada, I think now, and I did that for every year when it first started out. I miss things like that, and but hey, that's the way. That's life. That's the way it's got to be.
Hey, Cam never swears either on this podcast.
Yep,
by the way,
right.
he'll never be a guest on your podcast because he cannot go more than 5 seconds.
I never swear.
Don, don't listen to him. Don't. Why would you say that? I'm on the radio every single day. And I'm dynamic, Don. I could not cuss.
I could tell.
You know how that goes. If I don't need to cuss, I'm not going to cuss, Andy. Don't piss me off.
He shattered the all-time F-bomb record on the Spit and Chickles podcast.
Come on.
Don't get me wrong. When I was in the dressing room and playing, I was one of the best. But no, I never liked using that F word on television or on any show or any radio or anything like that because a lot of kids listen to that. But in the dressing room, nobody beat me. I was one of the best. And listen, if they ever took that word out of hockey would fold.
What's it like now trying to keep up with the times? Don, I stayed off of Twitter for a while. Lou Lamoriello, who you know, didn't want us.
Good guy.
You know, he's my second. I'll tell you this right now, Don. My parents love him so much. My parents only could take me up to so far, and my first boss ever was Lou Lamoriello, and I look up to that man like you.
Oh, he's a great guy. Doing a great job this year too.
So great job this year. But the whole point is, I stayed off of Twitter, and it kind of didn't help me set up for after hockey and things like that. But now you have to do that. I follow you on Twitter. How are you keeping up with the social media? Tell me that's not a pain in the ass because it is for both of us, and we're more in the game than you are. How do you keep up with all that stuff?
I like doing it. I had a lot of fun. I don't do many interviews, and I just don't do them now. But when Andy called and you were on, I had to do it. And if you can see, I don't do many interviews because I just don't. That's all. And I did it enough. But as you can hear now, I'm having a lot of fun with you guys. And well, you know, hockey. I hate being on with people that don't know hockey. You know, and it's ridiculous. But you played the game and you know the game, and I have a lot of fun with you. And they're lucky to have you out there. That I know a lot of cities that have guys that never played the game that think they know the game and they don't.
Yeah, and Cam doesn't really know the game, just
Thank
so you know,
Andy.
Don.
See, now you know why I get mad at him. Now you know why I get mad at him, Don.
Hey, before we move on, because I've got a lot of other stuff we want to get into, do you and Ron, do you guys talk? Have you guys spoken at all? And do you expect him to reach out, or do you want to reach out to him? How do you expect that to move forward?
We don't talk, and we don't see each other, and we never did see each other. He went his way and I went mine, and that's okay. I have no regrets.
Yeah. No, and I like that, how you have no regrets. You know, it is what it is. You had a great run, Don, right? What are you going to do? You had a great run. Now you just kind of turn the page. It's the next chapter, I guess, right?
That's the only thing. That's the only way you got to look at it. If you let things get you down, then you're in trouble. So, you know, a lot of people think I'm upset. I am upset to a point, but hey, I have a lot of fun. And if you don't have a lot of fun at it, I can see you guys have a lot of fun.
That's right. Until he makes me mad, of course, and I got to smack him around a little bit, but whatever. But Don, I want to get into...
You're the guy that can do it.
I think anybody in this restaurant right now can do it with Andy. But let me get into this real quick. And you know, Keith Tkachuk's a great friend of ours. I played with him in St. Louis. He was one of just the best leaders ever, and he was happy, Walt, Don, when we played together. You know, it was at the end of his career. His kids are watching him the whole time. So I'm a big Tkachuk fan. But the other night, you saw, of course, the Battle of Alberta. It's going to come this Wednesday, too. Calgary and Edmonton going at it. And I got pissed off at the situation with Tkachuk-Kassian and Matthew Tkachuk. And, of course, we all know Matthew went after him. And then, you know, Matthew took a beating. And he didn't have to take that beating. And my only problem with that whole thing is, if you know Tkachuk-Kassian's coming at you, stick up for yourself, Matthew. You're 6'3", you're 220 pounds. Just stick up for yourself. You know he's coming at you. Grab him by the legs, pile drive him down. Don't take a beating like that if you don't have to. Don, I've gotten in 400 fights. I've never gotten my ass kicked that bad, and I fought a lot of big, bad, tough guys.
Well, you'd never let a guy ragdoll you that way. You're going to run around like Tkachuk. If you're going to run around and you're going to blindside guys, you got to stand up. And Kassian grabbed him and dragged all around him. He never even got the gloves off. And, you know, that is a chicken way to play as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to run around and you're going to nail guys, blindside guys, and Kassian, I like Kassian. I always liked him. He's having a good year. And he did it 3 times to him. And finally Kassian said, that's enough. And I thought he'd at least try. Ragdoll, and I think that when they come back, he'll try to get at him. There'll be a guy between them. You know that, Cam.
Oh, yeah.
Be a guy between them and stuff like that, because he is really taking a lot of, and the reporters that, he played it smart. They won the game. Yeah. And they call him Turtle now, and that's what he is. They call him the Turtle. And he turtled, and there's no other word no other word to say about it. He turtled on Kassian.
Here's the thing, it could have gone a lot worse than that. Like he could have got caught right in the jaw. He could have ate one in a bad spot and broke his jaw, and then he's out for 6 months.
Pardon me?
Well, he would have been out for 6 months. I mean, he's getting pumped, lefts and lefts and lefts, and he just could have got caught in his jaw, and then he's out for 6 months, and then where are you at because you didn't stick up for yourself?
I don't care how long he's out. I've never heard of a guy being out 6 months in a fight. If you're going to run around like that and you're going to act like that, you got to stand up. And you notice nobody come to his rescue. One guy laid a paw on him and then let him go. And you notice the linesman let it go and the referee let it go. And I was very surprised that he got 2 games. I don't think he should have got 2 games. I was with the sheriff, Paris, I don't think he should have got 2 games and should have got a medal. And as far as that's how I feel about it. And if you're going to run around like that, you're going to act like an idiot. You stand up and be counted. And I don't care if he had a fought back, I don't think, and I've never heard of a guy being out 6 months. I bet you Bobby Plager, if you talk to Bobby Plager, I bet you he had a few things to say about it.
Cam may have sat out for. He may be talking from experience. I don't know about the 6 month thing. I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying if it's just when you don't stick up for yourself, you're going to get hit.
But Matthew, he's a skilled player, Don, right?
No, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
he's a hockey player, but no, you don't act like that. You just don't. And when you have a guy like Wes Doughty saying he's a jerk, and a good guy like Kassian saying he's a jerk, then you have to think that something's wrong.
All right, so what do you think of some of these other guys? I don't put Matthew in this category by any means, but we've had the Sean Averys. You mentioned Matt Cook. There's been Raffi Torres,
Tucker to a certain
Darcy
extent.
Tucker. I mean, there's been.
Well, Tucker was a little different. Tucker, he stuck up for himself.
Exactly.
He didn't back down too often.
Correct. I mean, but there's been some other guys who you'd consider to be, and I don't call Matthew a rat. Some people do, but these other guys had that label and that reputation. What do you like those guys traditionally?
He's not a rat. He's a turtle.
Oh, there's a difference between the two. You
can be a rat.
Yeah.
Like Kenny Linsman was a rat.
Yeah.
But he was a good rat.
Right, what about the other guys?
Nobody ever ragdolled him.
What about the other guys I mentioned? The Averys of the world, the Raffi Torres,
the
Steve Otts. What do you think of those guys?
I didn't mind Steve Ott either. Steve Ott was pretty good. The other 2 guys, some of the things they did. Remember he did that at Brodeur? In front of Brodeur. I couldn't believe that.
I was in the game. I got my ass kicked by Colton Orr that night.
Cam was on the back. Cam had a perfect view of this entire thing.
I had to chirp Lundqvist. I was threatening Lundqvist.
Oh, you did later?
Yeah, I was threatening Lundqvist, and I go out there to kind of bump him.
He did.
And then Colton Orr grabbed me and caught me with a left right in my temple.
Yeah. Oh, he's a pretty tough guy, that Colton Orr.
Oh, great guy, too. Great guy. Winnipeg boy, Donnie.
Oh, he was a good guy, too. I remember him. He broke Lusak's nose, I think, in Boston, and I had a big thing going down Ness, and I was, hey, Don Cherry's going to be on. And
oh yeah.
So I was on with I forget the girl's name. I forget, it was a blonde girl, lovely girl, and Mike Milbury. So I started really. They did the broadcast, and I really started to give it to Lusak. Listen, if you don't be get out there, you got to. And look, they both disappeared. They left me on TV alone.
Hey, so what do you think should Lucic, should he get involved? Listen, Kassian could, he's not in Tkachuk's weight class, right? And I understand. I'm just saying, in terms of the next game, if something's going to go down, who should handle it for Calgary? Should Lucic get involved, or does Matthew have to handle this himself?
The guy, if I was Tkachuk, who I'd watch out for is Nurse. I've noticed that Nurse. He played here. He doesn't fool around, and he's a big guy too, eh?
Yeah.
And he's going to try to get at him, Tkachuk, and on the pay that. Nothing I think is going to happen there. I mean, the linesman will be watching. But I tell you one thing, I wouldn't fool around with that nurse, that Darnell nurse. He's a tough guy. So I have to laugh. All the reporters are, oh, isn't it terrible? Isn't it terrible? Stay tuned. A great game coming up. The next game, and they get that used to happen. Those fights used to happen all the time. The last time I saw a guy ragdoll with that was Marchand with one of the Sundins. Remember that? That was a ragdoll like that.
No, he beat the hell out of Lars Eller. Remember was Lars Eller. Remember Grapes? He pissed pumped Lars Eller one time, but at least he stuck up to the way. I think he was pissed at Eller. Eller gave him a whack, and he caught him a couple times. But I want to ask you this though, Don. I'm watching a couple scraps lately, and there's not many, but there's a couple guys that are still going at that. Brunson from Anaheim, he fought Kane the other night. But I've noticed a lot now, and I get it. If the helmet comes off, the refs are just, I guess sometimes they're automatically in there, sometimes they're not. But a lot of times, the refs are getting in there when they're squaring off, and they'll grab one guy, and the other guy goes out and gives him a sucker punch.
Before the fight even
starts. It happened last night.
And somebody's going to get hurt because of it.
The ref came in there, not the linesman. The ref went in there, grabbed Delorier, and Kaner, good thing he slipped and fell, because he would have caught him with one right in the button. Like, what is going on with these guys?
Worst beating the worst cut I ever had to fight was it was in Rochester, and that's exactly what happened. I was all tied up with one guy. I never forgot the name of the linesman, and the guy that hit me was Dennis Hextall. And I got tied up with a guy named the linesman grabbed a hold of me. And his name was Chantrell, and the other guy's name was House. And boy, did Hextall, I don't blame him. And did he catch me with the right. I mean, he smiled before. He hadn't enough time to smile. And did he catch me with a beautiful. And you're right. If you're going to get in there, you got to get two guys in at the same time. You have one guy tied up and the other guy loose, boy. I mean, there's no mercy on that. When you get into those fights, you better be ready, because if one guy gets tied up with one guy, the other guy. The only guy I don't like to hit a guy when he's down, though. The only time, but the other guy gets tied up. That's his fault.
Hey, you think there's going to be fighting in the game 10 years from now, 15 years from now? You think?
Oh, the guys that fight now. There's not as many fights now, but I got to tell you, some of the guys can. I mean, they don't throw them like Corbett or Kosher or guys like that, but they throw them pretty good now. They can. There's not that many, but when they get in, they seem to be angry at each other. So, no, there'll always be fights. And, I know the fans love it, and the players like it. The only time the players bang the boards with their stick is after a fight. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah. Not after a goal, but after a fight.
I know, the fans loved it. What about Brady Tkachuk and PK Subban? You see that?
Yeah, it was nothing. It was just wrestling match. At least he stood up for himself, not like his brother, but it wasn't much of a fight. It was a wrestling match. But anyhow, at least he stood up and brought the family back in. I'll tell you one thing: his father, he was a tough guy. I mean, he could throw him too. He really was a tough guy, and. He must have been he wouldn't say it, I know, but he must have been mortified when he saw Matthew running around like that.
I know. No, it was Chantel as well, Walt's wife, of course. But yeah, it's different now. And you brought up the fact that no one hits anybody when they're down anymore. I mean, I was watching a clip. Remember Dave Brown? Big Dave Brown. Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah, he was good with it.
Oh, he would beat you up and then hit you when you're down. I mean, it's just it was a different world back then.
Yeah. He was a big guy.
Lefty.
Yeah, I remember he hit the guy with the stick too. That was he was a tough. He was a tough guy. He went a little too far with the stick too and blindsiding guys like that. But he was. I guess they'd give him about 30 games if he ever did the stuff he did then.
You used to be critical of guys who wore a visor. Are you over that now? Because most guys.
Oh yeah, well,
he hates everybody.
Well, the guys that wore visors at one time were all French and Europeans, if you remember. And none of the tough guys wore visors. You never notice that?
Tough guys, well, they can't.
Doesn't wear one.
They can't wear them.
Ryan O'Reilly doesn't wear one.
There's like 19 guys that don't wear them.
Yeah, and he's not bad. The MVP last year. Him and Bington. I thought the only time I ever saw, I thought it should have been co-MVP guys. I thought Bington was was valuable, and O'Reilly. He was a nice guy. I met his mom. I think his mom. You know what his mom's name is? Bonnie O'Reilly. How could you beat that?
And his dad's name's Brian O'Reilly.
Holy smokes!
How about that?
Yeah, and he trains guys.
Hey, remember you came on my radio show. I think it was the only radio show you did in the States. You did Tucker Carlson, the television show. You did my radio show. And you know how much I appreciated that, Don, and people absolutely loved hearing from you. But I remember before you came on, we were talking. Gary Bettman had just called you, and then you said during the interview you hadn't talked to him yet. And I know people like Bobby Orr reached out to you, Wayne Gretzky reached out to you, how much that meant to you. Did you ever get around to talking to Gary, and what was that conversation like?
No, I never did. I didn't want to phone him back. I mean, what is he going to say? He said what he and left a message. And but the guy that really came to my, I don't know what we call retina, really
defense.
Stood up for me was Bobby Orr, and he really went out on him, and he had right up after Bobby Orr, the greatest. Well, I suppose you'd say, but I mean, you guys never saw him play in person. I've seen them all play, and I was at the camps and with all the stars, and I remember and I hadn't seen him play, and I was playing for Rochester. It was my last year, and I couldn't believe when I saw him skate. I mean, he didn't skate. He seemed to float on the ice like coffee,
Mm-hmm.
Only he went in traffic, and I used to say to him, "Why do you go into traffic like that?" A lot of people don't realize that Bobby Orr only played till he was 28. He had to retire at 28.
Oh.
He won the scoring. He was a defenseman that won the scoring title 2 years in a row. He had 46 goals.
Wow.
That's 128 in 1 year. I mean, nobody could touch the guy as far as I'm concerned. And he came to my, not rescue, but, he came and said good things about me, which made me feel good.
And so, all right, so you think Bobby Orr is the greatest player ever, right?
Oh, there's no question about it. The guys that have seen everybody, and I've seen everybody, played with everybody, and there's nobody even close to him.
All right, so who's two? Give me your top five.
Pardon me?
Give me your top five. Who's two after Bobby Orr?
Well, you have to go with Doug Harvey with the way he played. I think he had 5 Stanley Cups. Gretzky's got to be center. I know a lot of people say but Gretzky set 70 records or something like that. Gordie Howe got to be on the right side, and although Lafleur was just as good, I used to love Lafleur. I guess I loved him too much, and I don't know. On the left side, there was a lot of guys. I hate the name. There was about a lot of guys playing on the left side. Busick was pretty good. Nobody remembers him, but I have to put. I don't know where does Ovechkin play? Does he play right or left side? I forget now.
He's a rover. He's everywhere.
He's a rover. He's a right shot. We know that.
He starts out on the right side.
I know.
But he's got to be in there too.
Yeah, power play. He slides over.
No Lemieux.
I mean, is
Lemieux? And the big thing that made me laugh was they picked. I forget the paper that picked him, but they didn't have Malkin in top 100.
I know.
Really?
Such a joke. That was such a joke, and he's incredible. So, Ovechkin, greatest goal scorer you've ever seen? I mean, or do you still go with Gretzky? And where does Brett Hall fall into things?
Brett Hall, and if he had Adam Oates, I remember when he was in St. Louis, Adam Oates was there. Adam Oates used to set him up. I think Mike Keenan was the coach. Let Adam Oates go. I think he got 76 goals, and he let Oates go, and I think. I mean, Oates used to feed him beautiful over there.
Oh yeah,
he's a sniper. Bobby Hall's a sniper. He was the first guy that sat on that left side there, like Ovechkin, and he was the first guy I saw when he shot the puck. He went to his knee and zinged it home. So there's a lot of good guys, and I remember when he had his toe. Remember that stupid rule they had if you had your toe in the
crease.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And Taylor, Boston would have won. I remember he won in overtime. They called it back. And I said, it's going to happen in the finals. And sure enough, Brett will tell you. And I remember I said his foot was in the crease. And they never said anything. And Buffalo never and they skated right off the ice fast. Remember Buffalo skated right off the ice fast? They had a challenged it or whatever they could do, would have been all right. And they won the cup, but his foot was in the crease. I remember that. I was the only one that said it at the time.
Yeah.
But he could put the puck in the net, and you feed him that puck, he could zing it in just like Ovechkin. I know a lot of people never saw him play, but boy, he could zing that puck.
No, I know you said Bobby, but I think you meant Brett going down on one knee and on the left side, right? You're talking about.
No, I meant Brett. Yeah, going down on what? Did I say Bobby?
Yeah, you said Bobby. That's okay. That's okay.
Oh,
we knew what you were talking about.
Do it. If he was in there, he would have done it on one knee too. He didn't have to. But I mean, Emmett Park. I know a lot of people don't know. Brad Park was an all-star too, and I had them for 10 games. We won 9 games. 9. I don't think. And they were fantastic. I mean, and Bobby, the cartilage caught up with him, and I remember getting off the plane in Chicago, and the knee had gone on him, and that was it. And they operated on him the next day. I said, "What did they do? The doctor carry a knife in his back pocket?" Oh, and that was the end of him. He went to Chicago. He was nothing. But nobody really saw Bobby Orr the downfall. Let's see. He won the scoring title. Then he won the Canada Cup. He was the MVP, and nobody ever saw him again. And talk about going out on top.
No doubt about that. And speaking of Brett Hull, Donnie, I grew up in Eureka, Missouri, St. Louis area, and Brett Hull, he changed hockey in St. Louis.
He was everything.
I mean, he was everywhere. He was so big in this town, and hockey wasn't where it needed to be. No one knew how to make the NHL yet, and then all of a sudden this blonde-haired mullet comes through, and he's scoring 86 a year, and we're all going to the games like, oh my God! And that just it amplified hockey so much in this town, and it started this wave of hockey players coming through and new rinks being built, and that was all because of Brett Hull.
Well, he was good for the game too. He was a loose, sort of not a loose cannon, but he say certain things and stuff like that, and he was good for the game. He was good for the game. He wasn't shy, and he'd say things. And I remember the story was, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but I heard that he went to Mike Keenan and said, "Look, I'll give him part of my salary if you'll keep Oates." And I just couldn't believe it that they let a guy like him go, because he used to just sift that puck over there, and he'd hammer it home. You couldn't believe it. And Oakes was never the same. He was good after, but they were never the same after they parted. No. They were the absolute. They were like magic together.
They were. Did you like Keenan? You bring up these names. I got to get your opinion on them. What about Mike Keenan? I mean, you talk about a lightning rod here in St. Louis.
I didn't have much to do with it. I remember one time I was in St. Louis, and we were playing a game, and Boston, and Brian Lewis was the referee, and I grabbed a bottle of water, and I threw it, and the top come off, and holy smokes, if it had hit one of the players, it would, and I let on. I was talking to another player, and somebody looked around, and everybody in St. Louis and all one side were pointing at me. I never forgot that. But I never got suspended. But no, I didn't know much about Keenan. I didn't know. I didn't. All I know is that he let Oates go. Who was the best?
Who's your favorite European player ever?
Valbury. There's no doubt about it. He's the guy that he played reckless. He could play in any era. He could play at any time, and he didn't care about anything. He wasn't afraid, and boy, he could put that puck in the net. And there's not many guys could skate better than him. And he used to go in traffic too. So Pavel Bure was my favorite European.
Was he good to you? Did you? There was one time.
It's funny.
You know what I'm talking about? Where?
Hey, I saw him in it.
Okay.
He used to have walk. He'd have 4 guys with big long leather coats around him, and I remember he stopped him one time, and I don't know what I was doing in the alley or in a court or something, and he come over and shook my hand. So I liked him. I always did like him.
Yeah, so did I. I obviously didn't play like him. Unfortunately, I probably would have made a little bit more money.
No,
but he was so interesting to watch because he completely dominated any game, and I don't see too many players besides a McDavid or a Ovi or somebody like that to come in and be that fast and that powerful and that exciting. I mean, he must have been so damn popular in Vancouver. He couldn't go anywhere. Grapes.
Boy, I tell you, this McDavid is something, though, isn't it?
Oh, my
I've
God.
noticed him when he was a Bantam up here, and he played for Toronto Marlies, and I knew he was going to be good, but holy smokes, is he dynamite, or can he skate, or what? And the only thing I don't want him to do is to cut around that outside, because defensemen aren't going to let him cut around that outside.
No.
But boy, can he skate or what?
Yeah, no, he's incredible. He's incredible. What are you doing with all your suits now, Don? That is sitting in a closet somewhere?
My daughter's taking them, and I guess she's going to auction them off. I have a Don Cherry Pet Rescue Foundation, and she takes care of it, and so she takes care of all my suits and my jackets, and there's a lot of them, believe me.
How many you think? How many you think?
I don't know. I swear to God, I don't know. There's an awful lot of them there, but she takes care of them all. She's the head of Don Cherry's Pet Rescue.
Yeah.
So they have them there.
Did you have a guy, one guy who made those for you over the years? Like, did you just get free
Yeah,
suits? Like,
I
how
used to
often
have
were you
them.
getting new
A lot of
ones?
hockey players have them there. It's called a coupe in Toronto, and a lot of guys had their suits made there, and I started to go there, and he used to do it. I used to drive him nuts, because I'd bring them back about 5 or 6 times, and go in and have them tucked here, tucked there, tucked there, but no more. I no more.
I have never seen any shirts like the one you wore either. I mean, the collar that went all the way up the top of the neck there, Don.
And somebody said, well, why do you wear they're uncomfortable? I said, yeah, but they look good, and it's better to look good than feel good. And they are uncomfortable, but they look good, and that's why I wore them.
I liked it when you wore 2 earrings and you had a cutoff T-shirt on before the LA game.
Geez. I got in a lot of trouble over that one. That was another one.
Hey, before what did
love
you
you, man.
what
We
did you
love
get
you.
the most trouble for? That you were like, oh no, I'm in
the
hot
last
water.
one.
The last one.
Well,
Yeah.
you don't mean the last-
Jesus, Andy, I want to answer that.
Besides that one.
Sorry about that, Don.
Besides that one.
Well, I think, you know the one that, I know the one. I'd say the one that I called Alpo Sumerman. He was the coach a long time ago of Winnipeg, and they asked me, he said, and Ron said, good luck to Alpo. And I said, I'm not wishing him good luck. Alpo, it sounds like a dog food. Ooh, that was...
It is a dog food, Don. It is Alpo's a
That's
dog
Alpo.
food. Isn't it?
Yeah, I know it was used to feed Blue that, but I got a lot of trouble over that one. That was
They called you in.
got out of that one. I don't know how I got out of that one, but I got out of that one.
I love it, man. As a guy who got called to the principal's office a lot as a kid, I love the
I don't
fact that
believe
it was
that.
still happening to you in your 80s, Don.
He's just shaking his head like,
that's,
what now?
That's legendary stuff, man.
Like,
so,
what now?
hey, listen, thanks for doing this. You know, we love you here, and, you know, our listeners obviously do, and it's just great to hear your voice, and don't be surprised if we call you again.
And another thing, Don,
Well-
I just want to say, like, just in case you don't like the Blues organization enough, but they take care of the military in this town, Don. I'll tell you that right now. They take
Yeah, I
care of the
know I
military
did.
in this town.
You better believe it. I saw the national anthem. They have the guys out there, and outside of Boston, I wish the St. Louis all the love from the and listen, tell Berube to keep him going.
We will.
And another guy you got out there who was all my favorite was Peter Angelo. I call him Peter Angelo. I know
Yeah, I
they
know.
call him Petro out there, but Peter Angelo used to play for Mississauga here, and he's a great plus. I said, tell him to keep going.
We love you, Don.
We will tell him. We will tell him, Graves. Thank you so
Toodaloo.
much.
You're the man, buddy. Toodaloo. See you, bud.
All right, that was Don Cherry, brought to you by Cope 24. A different interview. I mean, he certainly is entertaining. He still has his opinions, and he knows it. His memory is impeccable.
Oh.
Incredible.
Oh, my God. It makes me think, God, Cam, you have a terrible memory. You're 35 years old.
Yeah, he loves the
You
Blues,
can't remember
too.
a damn thing.
He loves the Blues.
He loves the Blues. He loves the military. Loves the police. Loves the first responders. And I'm like, you love St. Louis, then. Because everybody in St. Louis, for the most part, love the military. The organization, Blues organization, supports military, police, and all that stuff. So, hey, if you like the way this organization takes care of business in this town, man, oh man, it's right up your alley, Don Cherry.
What do you think about when he says he and Ron Maclean, they don't talk, they haven't talked?
Yeah. Look, Don seemed happy, man.
He did.
He was happy. Like he's like, I'm glad I come on your show and having a good time. Like, cool. Like, I think we make people comfortable too, which,
Yeah.
It is what it is. But he sounded happy, but he still has that pit deep in his stomach to where he misses the limelight and he misses probably like giving his opinion. Mm-hmm. And he's doing new things. He's on a podcast. He probably doesn't know is he tech savvy? No. But he's got to do all this new stuff. Now he's on Twitter. He never had to do any of that stuff. Now, in order to stay relevant when it comes to speaking your voice. He's got to do all these new things, so it must be pretty tough on him, man, as a whole.
It was huge news when he got fired by Sportsnet.
Yeah.
You think he should have gotten fired?
I mean, no. For me, look, I'm not a sensitive guy. I get where people can be sensitive on things. I'm just not. I mean, if you make fun of my cats, I might get mad at you, but other than that, like, I'm not. I don't get upset with things like that. I don't, and I'm kind of glad I'm not like that. But I'm not. So do I think he should have? No. Do I understand where he's coming from with that? Yeah, like just support the military. That's it. You people, I don't know, just people that didn't buy it are you people. But if you look at it in a different way and what he said over the past, you could tie two things together, blah, 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 blah. Now he's fired.
Yeah, but he has an opinion, and I love to get the historical perspective, especially when he said his top 5. One of the players he mentioned, you'd never even heard of.
I know, I did not. No, I'm not. Like the guy from the 60s, I don't know. But he said Pavel Bure was his favorite European player. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess when he elbowed old boy from Dallas, who was that? God, who did Shane Churla? Oh, my God. Remember that? He elbowed Shane Churla. It was the most wicked, nasty thing in the world.
Is he your favorite European?
Pavel? Mm-hmm. I think Peter Forsberg's up there. Pavel was great when I was a kid.
Yeah. I was a huge Bure fan.
Huge Bure fan.
And Fedorov, man.
All of them. Fedorov with the Nikes, cruising around, doing their thing. Nicky Lindstrom's a great guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of them. Yogs, I got to know him personally. Did you
ever walk Lidstrom, or did you?
I toe dragged him one time.
Were you on the ice?
I woke up.
Were you on the ice with him?
A couple times.
Yeah.
And Datsuk, and then Andy Murray would sit me the rest of the game because I got scored on.
You know, Crosby was a young player, and I remember writing that Pavel, talking to NHL players, like asking guys all around the league, including the Blues, who's the best player in the game, and they all said Datsuk, man. Not all of them, but the majority did.
Anytime I was caught out there with Datsuk and Zets, I was like, okay, I look at the bench, and Andy is losing his mind. Oh, the whole team's losing. Get off, Cam! I'm like, I can't. I don't want to be out here. I don't want to be out here. The only reason why I am is because we got 5 injuries.
That's awesome. All right, so Don Cherry says he doesn't do very many interviews.
He did one today.
He liked talking with us. We like talking with him. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Again, if you have advertising interest, be sure to hit us up. You have sponsorship interest, we'd love to hear from you as well. Hey, this interview brought to you by our friends over at Cope 24. Hope you enjoyed it. And a big shout out to our boy Jimmy Schneidhorst for letting us hang out here inside the institution that is Schneidhorst, here at the corner of Clayton and Lindbergh in Frontenac, Missouri, here in St. Louis. Until the next time, that was episode 16. Love talking to Don Cherry.